Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today I'm here with Morgan DeNicola. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good, and I hope I didn't butcher your last name, DeNicola. Okay, right?
Oh, you did great.
Okay. Okay, so Morgan DeNicola is the daughter of serial entrepreneurs who found her passion is philanthropy and diplomacy. I love that. So she believes that we all have incredible abilities that, if harnessed, can change the world